Okay, welcome to session 7 here. In this session, we're going to talk some specifics about underwriting expenses. Now, there's a list provided for you in your handout, and it's a fairly comprehensive list, but it is not the end-all, be-all list. I just want to give you the framework of underwriting and normal or typical underwriting expenses on a project, and discuss those so you make sure that you hit the highlights, you don't miss anything when you're in your underwriting efforts. You'll notice that in the handout, I give credit to the Joe Fairless book, Best Apartment Syndication book. I noticed that he had a nice list in there, comprehensive list of the expenses. This happens to be really close to the list that is on my underwriting template, and so I got the list, I wrote it down so that it's comprehensive for you. So these are just gauges, these are norms. I'm going to give this caveat, this note right up front, and that is, whatever market you plan to go invest in, please get these numbers and to go verify them. So especially areas like taxes, property taxes, go to the county or city tax assessment website and confirm the tax values and how taxation is performed in that city, municipality, county, wherever it is you are. Verify that. So once you verify these numbers in your particular market, wherever you're investing, then this is the framework for those expenses. Of course, you'll always check the actual T12 that you receive from the seller, and then you'll verify those costs going forward. I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million times again, all of your deals are evaluated on actuals, not market, not pro forma, what the property is doing as it exists when you're getting ready to make an offer on it. So let's go through the list. So typically payroll is $1,000 to $1,200 per unit. Now that covers your office staff, that can cover the on-site employees, regardless of what they're doing. If you have more than 2 on-site administrative people, you want to add more to that. If you have more than 2 maintenance people, you might want to add more. But your typical average is $1,000 to $1,200 per unit. Now, for maintenance, so for general maintenance and upkeep of the property, in your pro forma, in your projections, you want to allow $250 to $350 per unit. Contract services, these are things like landscaping, pest control, if you have any kind of security service that is monitored physically by an individual, contract services like that. If you have snow removal, if your property's in the northern part and in the cold parts of the country, those contract services you want to allow about $200 to $400 per unit. If you have anything excessive, like if you're in a property that has a very long winter and say parking lot clearance or snow removal is a major expense, obviously you want to bump it up. Turn or make ready. So every time you get ready to flip a unit, a tenant has left and you're preparing the unit for a new tenant to come in, you want to allow $150 to $300 per unit. Depending on the size of the unit, depending on the age of your property. You've got really old carpet in there and you know that the carpet is about to go, and so on the next turn you're going to put hardwood floors in or laminate wood floors in, then you're going to allow a little bit more, and some of that's going to come out of your CapEx expense as well. Advertising, about $100 to $200 per unit. That depends heavily on how much you coordinate with your project management company. Sometimes they have a marketing plan that's more aggressive than $200 per unit. Sometimes the property doesn't need a marketing plan that is $200 a unit. You can get by with $100 a unit. Admin, so Your administrative costs to operate the property. You've already covered personnel, but now you have some other administrative costs that you can include in there. For example, web services, or you might include background checks or credit reports, or some of those other kinds of services that, even though you're going to get paid for them, you're by the resident, by the tenant, when they fill out the application, you still want to do some budgeting of admin services. Utilities, $750 to $900. Now your key there is, are the units on individual meters, or is there a rub or a bill back? And what does your $750 to $900 unit per unit include? So if you have a large community area or a large common area with a lot of lighting, you've got pool and pool equipment, and the pool heaters are running, and you've got a gym that's on all the time with lights, and you've got a nice office and a showroom, and you've got a demo room, a demo model. So your utility cost may increase a bit. So evaluate the features of your property, the amenities of your property, and then see if your $750 to $900 per unit is enough. A management fee, typically in most parts of the country, your management fee is around 4 to 5%. I put 3 to 6 here of collected gross rents. Now that depends heavily on a few things. How many units that you have, because you're going to get more bang for your dollar the more units that you have. What is included in the management fee? What does the management company do for you? How much do they facilitate? How much do they oversee for you? Like, what's included in their services? But in the range of 3 to 6% of collected gross is what you want to calculate. All right, let's see what's next. Taxes. Okay, I already had a little conversation about the taxes. I'll go through it again because this is a thing that I contend with every single deal, and that's the taxes. The seller will report X dollars on taxes. I'll give you a great example right now, that I'm underwriting right now. The seller reported $101,000. No, I take that back. The seller reported $70,000 worth of property taxes. So I went onto the website, and I to the county website, to the city website, looked up property taxes, and this is in the state of Texas, by the way, and the actual property tax was $101,000. Now I don't know where that other $31,000 is. He might have it wrapped up in general expenses or something else. I've got to go in and do some due diligence, right? This is just the preliminary underwriting in order for me to make an offer on this transaction. But then, and by the way, the value of the property of those $101,000 was $4 million, $4,010,000. So based on $4,010,000, his taxes were $101,000. Okay, even though he was reporting 70. So when I buy it, if I buy it for 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, whatever I'm going to buy it for, I've got to plug in that number at the tax rate. And when I did, the taxes were $115,000. So now I've got to account for $115,000 of taxes in the first year after my acquisition. Now there may be a little bit of fudge there. I may get a little discount. I may be able to argue a little bit with the county taxing authority based on appraisal. I mean, there's some tricks there that you may be aware of. But for the purposes of underwriting, I have to allow for the new taxes. You have to allow for new taxes, all right? Call the tax office, visit their site, or do both. Insurance, typically around $200 to $300 a door. This is your property insurance, your liability insurance, your comprehensive insurance. So this is not the renter's insurance. That's something different, but to insure your property. And again, if you have crazy amenities out there, maybe you've got a playground, maybe you've got a hot tub, maybe you've got other amenities where there's some exposure or liability, get a quote so that you know what your actual insurance costs are. Lender reserves. Most lenders require that you put back some reserves for CapEx, for repair of the property, in case of emergency for the property, and typically that reserve equals about 9 months of payments. Your lender will tell you exactly what that is. I've seen the scale go from 0 to $350 or $400 per door. So I put in here $250 per unit. Check with your lender about exactly what they're going to require in lender reserves and what they want those lender reserves for. You can put into your underwriting an asset management fee for you to manage the asset. So as you go through the month and you make your calls with the property manager, and you authorize payroll, and you check the marketing, and you review the leases, and you do those things and you deal with investors, and you do oversee the monthly reports, and you direct the investor phone calls or reports, pardon me. That's all time that you should be compensated for. So typically, you'll put in about a 2% of gross collected rents for the management fee. That's to compensate you, the owner, operator, sponsor, to run the business of the property that you're invested in. All right. Other considerations, expenses, legal and accounting, obviously, trash that's on the property, trash bins, trash services that are on the property, security cameras. Sometimes these security cameras are held in a cloud, and there's a service, a monthly subscription fee for those. Sometimes you'll have a property that requires a physical security attendant in a car that walks the property at night. Pest control, I already covered that in the service contract services, but if you have any special pest control needs that you anticipate, those are other expense considerations that you will want to certainly calculate into your underwriting. So here's a few notes. Sellers, in my experience, often group their expenses together, or they miscategorize their expenses. In a dream world, your seller would provide for you a profit and loss statement that has the exact categories named exactly as you have them on your personal underwriting template. In a dream world. But that doesn't happen. I have never seen one match up with the other one. I've always got to go in and adjust mine and try to figure out what the seller meant. This is all before due diligence, because once you get into due diligence, you can find out exactly what the seller meant on his categories. But in the underwriting, prior to due diligence, say you're going to make an offer on a property, you got to do your best case guess scenario. So understand that sellers will often group their expenses, or they'll call them something different, or they'll just flat out miscategorize them, or they'll even miss them. They'll just flat out miss them. So be aware with this checklist of what you're talking, or what you're trying to underwrite. Always base your evaluations to purchase on actual expenses, not pro forma. I can't preach this enough. You're going to get pro formas. Every agent, every seller's representative is going to send you the beautiful Adobe Acrobat Illustrator version of what the property could be. That's their job. It's your job to find out the real truth of the property based on actual expenses and rent rolls. Be very conservative on your pro forma, especially if you're going to syndicate. It's better to underpromise and overdeliver. I think this probably is a really good business strategy overall in any kind of business that you're going to be in. But take the conservative road. Prove the deal to yourself and to your investors and to your partners on the conservative side of the highway. And when you get into the transaction, if you get good surprises and you make more money and you do better than the pro forma, well, nobody's going to argue with you about that. Where the arguments are going to come is if you were giving some kind of pie in the sky, Mary Poppins, everybody is happy, smiling, and there's rainbows and unicorns everywhere pro forma, and then you don't actually perform, and the property, that they're unrealistic and the property doesn't perform. Everyone is disappointed then. So lean toward the conservative side, evaluate toward the conservative side, and then get into the project and over deliver. That's the best formula there is. That'll give you a reputation that is impeccable, and you will have investors lining up to invest in your deals. All right, that's this session about underwriting, some of the categories. Take the list, use it as a checklist, create your own list, ongoing, that you always check off as you go through your underwriting procedure. I will see you on the next session.